Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Mujeye, and I really wanted to be here in Serbia with you, but due to circumstances beyond my control, I could not make it. And I've made this recording for you. I'll go over the PowerPoint that that is based on the paper that I wrote with Dr. Levy. I'm a PhD student at Nova Southeastern University, and I worked on this paper with Dr. Levy, who is a professor of from the Graduate School of Computer and Information Sciences at Nova Southeastern University. I'm also an instructor of network security at McHenry County College in Illinois. The title of our paper is Complex Passwords, How Far is Too Far? The Role of Cognitive Load on Employee Productivity. Our contact information is on this slide. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is smujeye@nova.edu, or Professor Levy's email, levy@nova.edu. The overview for our paper: the following topics will be covered in this presentation. The first topic that will be covered is authentication. Authentication will be defined. We'll also talk about the evolution of passwords. We'll also talk about the increasing demand for system authentication, the role of cognitive load on employee productivity, as well as explanation of the proposed quasi-experiment, as well as its limitations. One of the problems that I have noticed working with computers as it pertains to users is they tend to forget their passwords quite a lot. And I did share this with Dr. Levy. In most of my classes, I have students set up virtual machines, and during the course of the semester, they constantly forget the passwords to their virtual machines. And I think this happens not just with students, but with most users. All of us have to deal with several accounts. This could be several different email accounts that we have to log on to on a daily basis. And we may also have to log on to systems with different usernames and passwords. And dealing with that many number of users and passwords, users are bound to forget some of the passwords that they have to deal with. And it is on that premise that this research is based. The research problems listed there. This particular problem is validated by research. As you can see, our study seeks to address the obstacle of password memorability, as well as limitations to the human memory that affect humans' ability to recall complex passwords that have to be changed constantly. That was covered by Kisborn and George in their paper from 1974. Meng also pointed out that passwords suffer from security and usability problems. That's part of the research problem. Users have limitations in long-term memory, and because of that, they tend to use short passwords that are easy to remember. With all that, there is a great need to improve password security and complexity. Carstens and those other writers pointed out the need to improve the security of passwords. Part of the research problems deals with the cognitive load, which is based on a cognitive science that equates the human mind to a processing system with working memory and storage memory. I'll get into this a little bit later. So when users are required to constantly change strong passwords, it places a high cognitive load on them. That's based on Novakovic, McGill, and Dixon's paper. Now, getting into the evolution of the history or evolution of authentication. Authentication is a prerequisite of access control. It's a critical component of a secure system, and what it does is it ensures that the user proves their identity. So it's quite an important component of access control. There are different authentication types which provide different security levels, and the authentication strength for different systems has been increasing over the years due to rising security threats. What is authentication? According to Ren and Wu, they defined authentication as the act of confirming that the communication entity is the one claimed. Dr. Levy, along with those other authors, defined user authentication as the process of verifying an attempted request of an individual to gain access to a system. So those are some of the way authentication was defined in those research papers, in those journal articles. What authentication does is it ensures that legitimate users are allowed access into the system or into a network. It's an important component that has to take place before users can get into a system. There are three categories of authentication, which are knowledge-based. With knowledge-based, the user is authenticated by what they know. There is a possession-based. In possession-based, authentication takes place with what the user has. There is also biometric-based, which is what the user is. Out of those three categories, the knowledge-based authentication is the widely used. And with knowledge-based authentication, there are different classes as well. There is character-based. It could be image-based, or it could be question or answer-based. Out of the character-based authentication includes password authentication, which is widely used, as Kim noted in their journal article, in the journal article that was published in 2012. It is also the front line of defense against attackers, and virtually every system uses password as a method of authenticating users. As I mentioned earlier, passwords are the main ways that are used to authenticate users, and that is when the user confirms their identity with a secret key. Passwords remain the viable alternative to most situations, for most systems and situations, they are the widely used method of authentication, as I mentioned earlier. Password policies are also used to dictate the minimum number of characters, complexity, expiration limits, as well as the number of times a user can reuse the same password. There is a table there listing some of the characteristics and examples of password policy. For the characteristic, there is length, which could be 7 to 8 characters. There are character sets. With most password, they would require 3 of the following classes in uppercase, lowercase, letters, digits, and none of numeric characters. Part of the characteristic of a password policy is that it has an expiration date, which could be 180 days, 90 days, or whichever length is dictated. Then there is also the password history, and with the password history, it ensures that passwords that have been used before cannot be used again. In other words, you can set it to where the system remembers the last 12 passwords, and a user cannot use those passwords, the passwords that have been used before. Even though passwords are the widely method of authentication used, they do have some limitations. Some of the limitations include security. Security is an issue not just with passwords, but with just about everything that has to do with computers. They also have usability problems, as validated by Meng. Now I'll move on to the cognitive load theory. What the cognitive load theory is, what it does is it equates the human mind to a processing system with working memory and storage memory. So we are used to, let's take for instance a computer as a system. In this particular situation, we are looking at the human mind as a system with also working memory like RAM that we have in a computer, as well as storage memory. But working memory is limited. The research on cognitive load goes back as far back as 1956. Miller pointed out that the working memory is limited. The use of strong passwords, as well as constantly changing them, places too much cognitive load on the users. In other words, it places too much cognitive load on that system, which is the human mind. The goal of this experimental research, the goals are to address the obstacle of password memorability. I did point out the cognitive load theory, which looks at the human mind. It has some limitations, and some of those limitations have to do with remembering the passwords that have been used. One of the goals is to assess the effects of raising the cognitive load of the authentication strength for users upon accessing a system. In other words, when users access a system and the cognitive load increases, or the password strength increases, and they may have to change it several times as well. So part of this research is to assess the effects that the effects that it has on the human mind. This experimental research also seeks to find the point at which passwords become too complex for users and become counterproductive. We want systems to be secure, but sometimes as they become become secure, could it be that security at some point can become counterproductive? If that is the situation, this research seeks to find that. In terms of the experiment, there will be 2 experimental groups, Group A and Group B. They will each have 10 to 15 users, and both groups will be randomly assigned. Along with the 2 experimental groups, there will also be a control group, Group C, with the same amount of users, and they will be randomly assigned. All 3 groups, that is Group A, B, and C, will be asked to log on to a system, and when they log on to that system, the system will track the average logon attempts by those users. So they'll have to provide a username and password. The average logon attempts will be tracked. We'll also track the average time to log on. How much time will each user take to log on? We'll also track the average task completion. And as far as task completion, this will include completing the task of logging onto the system. But once they log onto the system, there will also be some tasks that they would have to complete, and some of those will require maybe going to a web page where they have to enter other usernames and passwords. So the time that they'll take to complete those tasks will also be measured in terms of the average. Will also track the number of requests for assistance, that if any user requests assistance. There is a table 2A here listing the experimental groups that I mentioned earlier, Group A, Group B, and Group C. And as you can see, in week 1, everybody will get their usernames and password assigned, and then in week 2, there will be treatment. There will be treatment. In other words, for Group A, will increase the authentication strength to 7 to 2 passwords. 7 to 10 characters, excuse me, and that password is supposed to have 1 uppercase as well as 1 number. On the other hand, Group B will start with a longer password in week 1, but in week 2, the password strength will be decreased to 15 to 20 characters, as well as 1 uppercase, 1 number, and 2 special characters. So for Group B, the strength will be decreased each week, whereas for Group A, the strength increases from week 1 all the way to week 6. Notice that for Group C, there are no changes. That is our control group. It will stay the same for the whole 6 weeks. And then when we get to week 7, Group A will begin to decrease while Group B increases. Let me go to this next slide, which explains, which shows how how the authentication strength will be manipulated. In other words, how the password strength will be manipulated. You see in blue, that is group A, the authentication strength increases from week 1 to week 6, and then after that it begins to decrease, whereas the authentication strength for group B will start very high in week 1 and it will decrease, getting to its lowest in week 6, and then it will be increased again from week 7 through to week 11. Now, the hypothesis for this experiment, there are 4 of them, centering along the 4 things that we'll be tracking in this particular experiment. The first one has to says there will be no significant differences on the number of logon attempts for all those from the 3 groups A, B, and C. The difference with hypothesis 2 is we are looking at that there will be no significant differences on the average logon times. Hypothesis 3, the difference is average task completion times, and then for hypothesis 4, amount of requests for assistance. So as students log on to the system, data will be collected each week, and that data will do with the average logon attempts, average time to log on, average task completion, and the number of requests for assistance. The first 3 from that first bullet, that is the average logon attempts, average time to log on, and average task completion, will be tracked by the system through analyzing the logs, while the number of requests for assistance will be tracked and collected by the network administrator or the experiment administrator. Direct measures will be used to assess the data collected against the 4 hypotheses that were listed, these 4 hypotheses. There will be some study limitations. This experiment will be conducted at 1 college only. So that happens to be one of the limitation. It's limited to only 1 college. The subjects of this experiment will be undergraduate students pursuing an associate degree. That's one of the limitations as well. So that future studies can include other levels like graduate students, or future studies could also include having subjects from the industry as opposed to being students. The preliminary timetable for this research is spring of 2014. The experiment will begin the week of January 20 in 2014, going through the week of April 7, 2014. And evaluation and analysis of data will begin right after the experiment has concluded. We hope that after taking this experiment, we hope to gain deeper insight of balancing increased authentication requirements and the capabilities of the human mind to recall such complex passwords. This experiment will also uncover the level at which the authentication strength will affect the user's ability to perform other tasks. The complete list of references that we used is included in the paper. with that title. So if you're interested in looking at the reference, would ask that you take a look at the paper. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and my email address is listed on this page. Dr. Levy's email is also listed on this page. Thank you for listening.